Obviously, I've always noticed it's a kind of constant part of my daily life, and anybody who lives within 10 miles of the Hollywood sign says they live near the Hollywood sign. It's such a point of comparison, it's such a geographic, conceptual, fantasy-ridden standard for where you are in Los Angeles. It was just so much fun kind of driving around, looking at the old houses, trying to figure out where the neighborhood grew, where it started, how it developed, find all the little nooks and crannies, the little pockets there, look up the houses on Zillow or on the county assessor site to get a general idea about when they were built. And then to try to really tell the story of, the intertwined story, I think, of Hollywood and the Hollywood sign. That is, here's a sign that was just put up temporarily for a real estate development. It was supposed to be seen from Wilshire. That's what Harry Chandler said he wanted. Somebody driving on Wilshire, which was not a very developed street at that point. He wanted people to see the sign. It gathered this kind of significance over the years. In a way, it's probably comparable to something like the Eiffel Tower. The Eiffel Tower, when it was built, was also supposed to be temporary. In fact, a lot of the artists and writers in Paris, Zola, de Maupassant, people like that, thought it was really one of the ugliest things they've ever seen. They said, get this out of our Paris. But somehow, over the years, the Eiffel Tower now means Paris, just as the Hollywood sign, again from these very humble or very commercial beginnings, now means Hollywood. But what Hollywood is it? What Hollywood is it that it means? It means a geographic place, it means a fantasy place, it means a place that exists in the imagination as much as it does in rocks and stones and hills and real places there. And that's really the story that I wanted to tell. So I actually start the book. The first chapter is Hollywood before the sign, how it was first built. People came out here, a lot of the early settlers, often prohibitionists, people who wanted to get away from the big city, people who wanted to get away from the kind of grittiness of immigrant urban life, to build their mansions, to grow their gardens, to cultivate their beautiful flowers in this place that was a little separate from everything else. And it's only gradually that Hollywood became the word that signified the movie industry. So here are all these different Hollywoods floating around. Hollywood the place, the sagebrush, the mesas, or Hollywood the business, the nuts and bolts, the studios, the actors, the actresses, the craftspeople, and Hollywood the fantasy, the place where I want to be, the place that's going to justify me as a person because I will become a movie star. All these different kinds of Hollywood weave together, and they weave together in the history of the sign, too, because the sign doesn't become significant really until very late in its history. It's built in 1923, and it's really not till late after World War II, and then really with the 1970s, that people start thinking about the sign as this emblem of Hollywood, at a time when it has to be rebuilt, it has to be repaired. Up to that point, it's falling apart. So it has a very checkered past. It's starting to fall apart really in the late 40s, looking very tattered in the same way that the Los Angeles that we see in film noir is also a very tattered place. It's not the gorgeous place of the 30s with all the movie stars in their fancy cars driving around. It's much more a down and out place. One of the intriguing things about the rescue of the sign, the various rebuildings of the sign over the years, is that for the most part it was not done by people in the movie industry, and it was often not done by people who lived here or who had lived here very long. The first really important reconstruction of the sign was really spearheaded by Hugh Hefner and Alice Cooper, both of whom had only recently come to Los Angeles. So there's something about the sign and the way that it symbolizes Los Angeles and Hollywood in particular that attracts the outsider, attracts the out-of-towner rather than the native.
Of all the